In the instant the stray bullet found its mark in Taylor Hayes's back, time fractured into a moment of screaming clarity and white-hot panic. The courtyard party had been alive with laughter, champagne toasts, and the soft glow of California twilight, but that laughter died on the wind the moment the gun fired, a single, errant shot that perforated the soft fabric of Taylor's blouse, cut through muscle and bone, and sent her crumpling to the tile like a rag doll. In the echo of that shot, Steffy Forrester, who had been standing nearby talking strategy with her father, Ridge, felt the world tilt off its axis. The sight of her mother's blood blooming across the marble slab ignited a feral, protective fury in Steffy that no socialite soiree could contain. She sprinted to Taylor's side, her shoes slipping on the slick surface, her manicured nails digging into tile as she fell beside her mother and pressed trembling hands against the wound. Taylor's eyes, wide with shock and pain, met Steffy's, and in that shared instant, the daughter became the wolf mother incarnate, fierce, implacable, and ravenous for vengeance. Ridge, his tailored jacket flung aside as he knelt over Taylor, felt the same tidal surge of fear and rage. He looked from his wounded wife to his daughter, now snarling at the crowd of onlookers who had frozen in horror, and he made a silent promise that one way or another, whoever had fired that bullet would pay. The night air grew electric as ambulances wailed in the distance, and Ridge helped Taylor into the arms of paramedics, his hands shaking as he secured her onto the stretcher. But Steffy's adrenaline would not abate. Even as Taylor was whisked away to the nearest trauma center, Steffy stormed toward the gathered police officers, her voice low and fierce as she demanded answers, demanded justice, and most of all, demanded that they find the person responsible for this atrocity. By dawn, Ridge and Steffy had mobilized resources that reached far beyond the jurisdiction of the Los Angeles PD. Ridge, as heir to Forrester Creations and an influential figure in high society, wielded calls to international law enforcement contacts he had cultivated through charitable endeavors and model trading deals. Steffy, equally relentless, scoured surveillance footage, social media posts, and private security feeds for any trace of the shooter's identity. Emails flew between Interpol liaisons and California task force leaders. Phone lines buzzed with tips, leads, and frantic requests for debriefs. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Taylor lay pale and bruised but stable, her indomitable spirit flickering in her eyes even as she endured the pain. Far from the sterile halls of the trauma unit, however, a far more precarious chase was already unfolding along the jagged coastline of California. One that would pit Ridge and Steffy's determination against the desperation of Luna, the young woman now suspected of pulling the trigger. Luna, whose exact motivations remained clouded in shadows, had been spotted fleeing the scene in a sleek, black convertible, its engine roaring along winding seaside roads as dawn's first light painted the Pacific a muted gray. She was not alone in her flight. Rumors swirled that she had accomplices waiting in vans at planned rendezvous points, ready to spirit her away the moment she turned a corner. Steffy, refusing to cede any ground, joined the pursuit in Ridge's private jet, coordinating with police units stationed at strategic choke points from Malibu to Santa Barbara. Text messages crackled with GPS coordinates, helicopters buzzed overhead, their spotlights cutting through the fog that clung to the cliffs like ghostly fingers. Ridge manned the radio, issuing commands in clipped tones, his eyes never leaving the radar screen that pulsed with Luna's last known location. As the chase pressed north, Luna's panic deepened. Each lead she traced turned cold. Each coastal hamlet she passed tightened the net. Jesse and Marisol, the undercover agents, were weaving around her. Under the tremulous glow of dawn, Luna fled through seaside villages where children chased kites on the beach and joggers meandered along boardwalks, oblivious to the ticking time bomb racing past them. Her hands trembled at the wheel, tears streaked her cheeks as memories of Taylor's fall haunted her. Could she really have done this? The guilt, the fear of retribution, and the knowledge that more blood might be spilled if she remained on the run converged into a maelstrom of terror. Yet the harder she drove, the closer the agents came, and the more erratic her maneuvers became, sending pebbles skittering across the sand and horses rearing in local stables. Back in Los Angeles, tabloids splashed shocking headlines: Steffy's rage unleashed, Ridge's war on Luna, violence threatens quiet coastal communities, fueling a media frenzy that only added fuel to the fire. Public outcry demanded an end to the chase before innocent bystanders were caught in the crossfire. Community leaders along the coast called for calm. Neighborhood watch groups organized patrols, families huddled indoors, locking doors and drawing blinds against the prospect of armed conflict. But for Ridge and Steffy, there was no question of retreat. Taylor's life hung in the balance, and only Luna's capture could begin to undo the nightmare she had unleashed. As noon approached, the pursuit reached its crescendo near a deserted stretch of beach where jagged rocks jutted into the surf like the teeth of some ancient sea monster. Luna's convertible, its engine groaning, ground to a halt, tires spinning helplessly on sand. She stumbled from the car, her heels sinking into the grains, and turned to face the line of police cars that converged like a metallic wave. Agents with shields and rifles advanced, ordering her to drop to her knees. Steffy and Ridge arrived moments later, breathless from the helicopter descent, Steffy's face drained of all color except the white flame of vengeance. Luna's eyes met Steffy's, and the unspoken exchange crackled with all the fear, guilt, and defiance that had built between them. Then, in the hush before the storm, Luna raised her hands, pale, trembling, and stained with dirt, and dropped to her knees, sobbing that she had never meant to hurt Taylor, that it had been an accident, a warning shot gone wrong. But Steffy, wolf mother incarnate, would not be mollified by excuses. She strode forward, her stiletto heels clicking like gavel strikes, and demanded Luna be cuffed on the spot. Ridge placed a firm hand on Steffy's shoulder, a rare gesture of sympathy for her pain, yet his eyes never left Luna's face, searching for the truth. Luna's tears fell, her lips quivering as she recounted a story of blackmail, manipulation by unknown forces, and a shot meant only to intimidate, but no one on the beach could decipher where the lies ended and the truth began. What mattered was that a bullet had shattered the peace and threatened to shatter Taylor's life. The agents hauled Luna to her feet, placed her in handcuffs, and began the trek back to the awaiting squad car, the distant crash of waves serving as a grim soundtrack to her downfall. But even as Luna disappeared into the vehicle, the threat of violence lingered in the salty breeze. Residents peered from curtained windows, shaken by the knowledge that a single bullet could so easily turn a tranquil neighborhood into a theater of terror. Ridge and Steffy exchanged a loaded glance. This victory felt hollow against the backdrop of Taylor's pain, the community's fear, and the questions that still swirled about who had driven Luna to this breaking point. Had she been the lone shooter, or a pawn in a larger, darker game? As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the sand, Ridge vowed to uncover every secret, to root out every conspirator until justice was served and Taylor could heal without fear. Steffy, her rage momentarily sated, knelt beside the wounded heroine who had given her life lessons in strength and resilience, and swore an oath as fierce as any wolf's howl. She would guard her mother with her own blood if she had to. And so the chase concluded on the beach where terror had been unleashed, but the war had only just begun. With Luna in custody, Forrester Creations braced for the storm of legal battles, media scrutiny, and personal reckonings that lay ahead. The coastal community, still trembling, began the slow work of mending fences and hearts, while Ridge and Steffy, their bond forged in crisis, prepared to stand as a united front against whatever darkness lurked beyond the tides. In the world of the bold and the beautiful, Peace is but a fleeting moment between storms, and as the waves rolled in under a blood-red sky, one truth shone clear. When a bullet can change the course of lives in an instant, only the fiercest loyalty and the sharpest resolve can keep love from being swept away. Bill Spencer's world shattered the instant he learned that Luna's hand had turned lethal, that the stray bullet meant to intimidate had instead taken a life. He had been pacing the sterile corridor outside the intensive care unit, his designer shoes tapping a frantic Morse code of dread across the polished floor, when the detective on duty uttered the words that cut through his heart like a serrated blade. "It wasn't an accident, Mr. Spencer. The shot was fired by Luna." All at once, the cold antiseptic of the hospital became suffocating, the beeping monitors and hushed prayers feeling like a cruel mockery of the life he'd tried so hard to protect. Bill's face contorted in disbelief, in denial, and then in unbridled fury. He stormed into Taylor's room, his usually immaculate suit wrinkled and stained with sweat, and found his sister sobbing at their mother's bedside, a nurse's hand on her trembling shoulder. The sight of Taylor's tears ignited something primal in Bill, a feral need to destroy the world that had betrayed him. He let out a guttural roar that reverberated through the ward, causing visitors to flinch and staff to freeze, and then he turned on his heel and fled. He tore through the hospital corridors like a bullet himself, each step fueled by rage and grief, until he burst out onto the sun-drenched lot where his private helicopter waited. He barked orders to his pilot with such venom that even the veteran aviator recoiled. Within minutes, the rotors were slicing through the Los Angeles air, carrying Bill toward the headquarters of Spencer Publications, that glass and steel tower where he had built an empire and branded his name into billboards around the world. As the cityscape receded beneath him, Bill felt the weight of betrayal settle in his chest. Betrayal by Luna, by fate, by the idea that power could protect him from tragedy. When the helicopter touched down on the rooftop pad, Bill was a man possessed. He stormed through the executive suite, his private domain where every desk bore his signature leather blotter and every wall was lined with accolades and ripped photographs from the walls, images of gala dinners, of Luna smiling innocently, of Bill smiling back. He grabbed a framed editorial award and hurled it into the mahogany reception desk, sending shards of glass and twisted metal clattering across the marble floor. He overturned chairs, kicked open filing cabinets, and hurled folders containing journalists' pay rates and bullion bond certificates into the air, the papers fluttering down like wounded birds. His scream of anguish echoed through the hollow atrium, and only when his knuckles bled and his suit jacket lay in tatters did Bill finally pause, chest heaving, eyes wild with anguish. Only then did the full weight of consequence descend upon him. Corporate lawyers and PR consultants, summoned by the wailing alarms and the panicked security call, locked eyes with Bill, expecting direction. Instead, they were met with a man unraveling, his grief contorting into an anguished apology as he ordered them to locate the family of the victim, Luna's unintended target, and to arrange a settlement immediately. The legal team exchanged glances, calculating damages and anticipating the spectacle of litigation that would follow. Bill, in a broken voice, promised whatever it took to compensate for the life lost, to atone for a tragedy he never saw coming, but felt responsible for regardless. By midnight, Spencer Publications had wired a multi-million-dollar settlement to the grieving family's trust account, a gesture of contrition broadcast to every major news outlet as an admission of guilt and regret. The headlines the next morning blazed in red. Spencer pays dearly for lethal mistake. Bill Spencer's fury spills into shattered editorial suite. Family of victim receives millions in compensation, each one a hammer blow to the legacy Bill had painstakingly crafted. Within hours, the boardroom walls began to close in. Shareholders, many of whom had privately grumbled about Bill's volatile management style, seized on the debacle as proof that the company needed new leadership. Trading in Spencer Publications stock became a frenzy, buy and sell orders flying faster than any investor could track. The share price plunged, wiping out millions in market capitalization, and margin calls threatened to force the sale of key production assets around the world. Emails flooded the inboxes of every board member. Terse demands for an emergency shareholders meeting, letters from institutional investors threatening to vote Bill out, and a flurry of rumors about a familiar name re-entering the fray, Justin Barber, ex-CEO. Exiled by Bill's machinations, but revered by many on Wall Street for delivering steady growth and unflappable discipline. By late afternoon, the formal notice had gone out, a special meeting to be convened at Spencer Publications' towering headquarters at dawn, with a single agenda item: leadership succession. As the sun rose over Los Angeles, its rays glanced off the skyscraper's mirrored facade, illuminating the tension within. Justin Barber arrived first, his tailored suit crisp, his expression calm as he stepped past security and into the lobby. He had chosen to re-enter the fight the moment he heard that Bill's grip had slipped, his mind racing through the strategic steps that would guarantee his return. Behind him, a small cadre of investors who still believed in his vision followed in hushed support. In the boardroom above, the monstrous portrait of Bill, once hung prominently, had been removed after the night of violence. In its place, the flickering slideshow of newspaper clippings and social media posts painted a damning portrait of instability and financial hemorrhage. Bill, for his part, arrived just as the meeting was called to order, his face drawn and ashen, his once commanding presence now tempered by the heavy knowledge of lives lost and fortunes at risk. The chairman, a senior board member who had long viewed Bill's unpredictability as an Achilles heel, opened the meeting with a solemn assessment: "We face a crisis unlike any other in Spencer Publications' history. A tragedy born of personal vendetta has spilled beyond the private sphere into our public reputation and financial stability. We have a duty to our shareholders to restore confidence and protect our assets." A murmur of assent rippled through the room. Bill's attempts at a defiant speech were undercut at every turn by fresh data. Plummeting share price charts, lists of institutional investors threatening divestiture, quotes from angry journalists and bereaved family members decrying the cost of his outburst. Justin's moment came when he rose, smooth and poised, and reminded the board of the last turnaround he had engineered, how, under his steady hand, Spencer Publications had weathered the digital transition, grown new revenue streams, and established partnerships that now fed millions in recurring profits. He spoke of accountability, of tempering passion with prudence, and of a clear strategy to rebuild brand credibility. "Bill's contributions to this company are undeniable," Justin said, glancing toward the other man with a tinge of respect wrapped in steel. "But right now, stability must trump spectacle. We need leadership untainted by blood, focused solely on the health of our enterprise." The room fell into a tense hush as the resolution to nominate Justin for CEO was put to vote. One by one, board members, once loyal to Bill, turned their ballots toward the returning executive, their choices dictated not by sentiment, but by the stark arithmetic of survival. Bill watched the scene unfold through a haze of shock and rage. Every vote against him was a dagger aimed at his legacy, every raised hand a verdict on his reign. By the final count, the motion passed with a decisive 2/3 majority, and the chairman's gavel came down like a judge's hammer. Justin Barber would assume the mantle of CEO pending final ratification at the annual general meeting. The decision sent a tremor through the financial community. Traders on the floor took the news as a sign that the company would once again regain its footing, and within hours the share price stabilized, halting its freefall. Yet for Spencer Publications, the crisis was far from over. Underneath the veneer of improved stock metrics lay simmering resentment, wounded pride, and the knowledge that Bill Spencer remained a force to be reckoned with, a man capable of both creative genius and unspeakable rage. As Justin moved into the CEO's office, surveying the view of the city he would now steer, he understood that winning the title was only the first step. He would need to navigate Bill's remaining allies on the board, repair relationships with advertisers who had withdrawn in protest, and mollify the public outrage that still pulsed beneath the headlines. Meanwhile, Bill, banished to the fringes of the empire he had fathered, retired to his private study, nursing his wounds and plotting his next move. The echoes of Luna's fatal shot and the crash of his own temper would haunt him, a grim reminder that in the world of power and ambition, a single misstep can bring an empire to its knees. As the sun set on another turbulent day, Los Angeles glittered beneath the skyline, a city built on dreams and drama, where empires rise and fall on the whim of one person's choice. Spencer Publications now teetered on the razor's edge between renewal and ruin, its fate resting in the hands of a returning savior determined to prove that cold calculation could triumph over raw emotion. But in the silence that followed the storm, a single question hung over the boardroom and the hospital, over the devastated family of the victim and the angry shareholders who had forced Bill from his throne. When a man is driven by both grief and wrath, can even the slickest corporate strategy contain the wildfire of revenge that burns behind his eyes? Only time would tell whether Spencer Publications would emerge from this crucible stronger, or whether the tremors of that fateful shot and the tears it drew would fracture the company beyond repair. In the glittering madness of LA, where every scandal is a commodity and every tragedy a storyline, one truth remains immutable. Power without restraint is a powder keg, and once it ignites, no fortress is safe from collapse.